The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 115.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneur's Library. Today we have Peter Voogd, author of 6 Months to Six Figures. As always, if you'd like an opportunity to win this book, become a VIP at the elpodcast.com. Let's jump into the interview. Welcome, Peter, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Will you take just a moment before we take a deep dive into your book to introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you personally?
Definitely, and I want to be quick because I'm excited to get into the book. I'm a serial entrepreneur, Wade, and I've been running businesses since I was 15. Started an eBay business and wasn't really the best student, wasn't always involved in school, and I did go to college, but I really have a niche in entrepreneurship and business. So started a business at 15, got into direct sales when I was 20, 21, and did that for a while, and I worked my way up to being an actual district manager where I was running a sales team, and I actually had some pretty big failures along the way, and I learned a lot of my successes from my failures, but I was able to go from dead broke and struggling and stressed out to where all my savings kind of dwindled down and didn't have anything left. And from 6 months after I was broke, I was able to earn my first six-figure income and do it over and over again. And I actually left a pretty steady, medium-level six-figure job because I felt like my magnitude of mission was growing, and I'm really on a mission to shift our culture. So anything to do with helping entrepreneurs and helping sales professionals, helping young leaders be the best at what they do and start businesses that matter, I'm all for that. So I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I'm focused on entrepreneurship, helping young entrepreneurs, and really that's it. I was the worst. I was the manager that was the worst trained. My manager that was training me quit a couple months after I started, and I kind of self-taught myself to be a leader, and was able to be the quickest in my company history to hit $1 million in sales, but I was working 80, 90 hours a week. So it's great to make six figures, but I don't know if I'd want to do that if you work 80 hours. You want some freedom. So that next couple months, Wade, I dedicated myself to study every top entrepreneur, CEO, and anyone that really was making millions and doing it the right way, having time with their family and things like that. And I was able to flip it where I was only working 15, 20 hours a week, and I was able to increase my results by 30, 40%. And I kept doing that year after year, and I was able to do pretty well for myself at 23, 24 years old. But then I stopped that and started my own couple companies, and that's what I do now. So I've never really done a short bio like that, but any questions you have, I'm ready to go. And that's kind of where the book came from, which we'll get into. But I'm an avid entrepreneur, and I love what I do.
No, that was perfect. Thank you for sharing all of that. And now let's jump right into your book, 6 Months to Six Figures, which, I guess will be made available for purchase here shortly, December 7th, 2014. And Peter, we're going to move quickly, but we're going to cover the top questions that our reader/listener would like to get answered. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing 6 Months to Six Figures?
Good question. Well, it really came from experience, and it came from me training close to 5,000 young professionals and really seeing where our society was heading, where our education was heading, and being in school, not learning anything that actually helped me in the real world, and really realizing that this book was needed at the highest level. Parents are doing a shitty job, a lot of them. Teachers are doing a shitty job, and I'm just being very blunt. But I realized that I had to take it upon myself to create a book, a blueprint that an entrepreneur or a young person can look at and read and actually have 100% clarity on how to be successful in this challenging economy. So a couple things that really sparked the book. One of them was I was in a meeting running a sales meeting for my top salespeople, and I got an article sent to me from Forbes, not from Forbes, but a Forbes article. And it talked about how it's been the toughest time in human history right now for our youth to succeed just because of constant distractions, evolving technologies, information overload, entitlement mindsets. And at the same time, when it's really challenging to succeed, there's the least amount of guidance there ever has been. And I don't know if you know, but if there's not much guidance and it's the toughest time to succeed, that makes it a challenge for young people to really get out there and figure out what they're best at and go change the world and go do what they love in a very smart way where they're making money doing it. So I felt like I had to come in and really provide a blueprint for them. So 60% of college students can't find work in their field after college. What the heck do you do for 4 years where you can't find work after college? Shouldn't that be the main focus? I don't understand. And 71% of people hate what they do, Wade, and are actively disengaged at work. And then one last stat that just fires me up is at the age of 65, 69% of American people are dependent on their relatives, friends, or charities for money. 29% are still working, and 2% are financially independent. And I wanted to change that number and help younger people understand that they can be that 2%, because the reality is when you ask someone that's 18 if they're going to be successful when they're older, guess what all of them say? Oh, of course I am. But then you fast forward and 2% of them are successful. So that's really where the book came from, in a dire need to help our economy and help the young generation and shift our culture forward in a positive way.
So, Peter, you've dove into this next question just a little bit, but I want to ask it anyway and allow you to go into greater depth. And that's, what makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
Oh, do you really want me to? I have more reasons than we'll take on this podcast. Here, I'll go over. My team actually created a document on the 10 things that differentiate. I don't know if you can link things, but I could link that document below too, where readers can read it. It kind of gives a little more about it. But here's a couple things. Everything, Wade, is based on experience, results, and past success and failure. So what's discussed in the book is from me being in the trenches, literally going broke, not being able. I remember going in a drive-through and not having enough to get a meal at Wendy's, like not joking, to being able to have a good amount of money in my bank account when I was 22, 23, more than most people make in 2-3 years I had in my bank account. So I've been at the bottom and I've done pretty well. So it's really the no BS, no fluff, no academic theory, no sugarcoating way to get to really where you want to be. And it's real world tactical strategies from my 10 years of experience. The second thing is I've trained almost 5,000 people and I've built a multi-million-dollar empire by 27. So I really have an authentic and a raw understanding of what it takes to motivate and inspire the millennials and the leaders of today. And the strategies I teach in the book have already helped countless people go from broke and stressed to struggling and thriving at a very high level. So I realize that I'm not dissing authors. I love authors. There's some amazing books out there, but a lot of them have never actually trained or actually in person helped somebody else besides through their book. So it's really, I've been in the trenches. I've ran a lot of trainings and things like that. The next thing is, and stop me because I could keep going. The next thing is this relevant to what works now, not 10 years ago. And I get that fundamentals don't change, but the skills needed to thrive have changed the past couple of years. And what it took to succeed 5 years ago doesn't work as much anymore. It's really adapt or die in this new economy. And the relevance of the book, I think, sets it apart as well. Whereas if you listen to what your parents did 25 years ago, you're in for a pretty rough ride, right?
Yeah.
What I've also done is I took the last 10 years, and I mean, the book should have been 300, 400, 500 pages, but I literally went through it after it was finished and took out all the fluff and all the BS. So I simplified it. So the book is focused on helping people rise above the noise, become the best at what they do, and build world-class lives. But it's simplicity is what separates it. There's not all these things like you can do it. There's really no wasted words. So whether you've been an entrepreneur for 40 years, or you just heard about entrepreneurship and this is your first podcast you've ever heard, you will gain massive value.
So how do you suggest the reader engage with your book? Is this a book that they should really, jump in and jump out, cherry picking information as needed? Or did you really design it to be, started and finished, front to back?
Good question. I like this interview. So it's funny that you asked it at that time. The next thing that separates it is the mastery focus versus overload focus. So it's designed to help you create 6 figures in 6 months. But every single chapter has questions in like a worksheet, Wade, where they can actually go through and fill it out. And what I talk about in chapter 2 is it's called mastery versus overload. And I've spent, tons of money, thousands on personal development and mentors and masterminds and retreats and some of the best training. And this book brings the cutting edge of why mastery is the highest form of accomplishment. So what I teach is you want to focus on the few areas that actually matter. And then you want to implement those. You want to study it, take notes, implement, and then go back, read the same thing, take notes, implement. And once you actually see results in your life and business, then once you feel like it's helped and you can teach it, then go to the next chapter. Does that make sense? So it's focused on finishing it within the next couple months. And here's the problem. I see on Facebook and all these things where companies are promoting, oh, I'm reading 60 books this year. I'm reading 50. That's great. I'd rather master 5 than read 50.
Absolutely.
So it's focused on mastering versus overload. Like most people, like I read a book. Hey, what'd you learn? Well, I can't remember, but it made me feel good in the moment. This is not a feel good. This is like actually do good.
Perfect. So Peter, now that we know the purpose of the book, let's take a deep dive into the content. Will you please take us through the chapters and give us an idea of what's under the hood?
Ooh, you want to get deep dive?
Absolutely.
So should I pick some chapters? I have it right here. Pick my favorite ones or kind of go through each one fast. Whatever you feel is the most effective and best for the viewers, I'll do.
We have about 5 to 8 minutes. Let's go with 8 minutes to go through. So if there's a million chapters, then because it's not out yet, I guess I don't even know. But
there's 900,000 chapters, almost.
You have about a second per chapter. No,
just one word.
You know your book best. So whatever you think. Here's what this audience member is wondering right now. Is Peter's book my next great book that's going to help me move forward personally or professionally? And they're the same kind of person as you. They're entrepreneurs, no fluff, no BS. So yeah, absolutely. Take us through exactly how you think best for that audience member.
Got it. And what's exciting for me is the question is not if it's one of the best books that'll help them. The question is if they have the courage, confidence, and the implementation mindset to really take it and use it. Because I've seen it work the last 10 years. So it works 100%. It's just the viewer needs to make sure they take action. So I'm not going to talk about the chapters I've kind of hit on. But the first thing I go through, chapter 3 after the mastery is the money mindset and why money really matters. So that's a big focus, is getting in the right mindset to attract money. And I go through 8 very tactical strategies on really how to make sure you're maximizing your income in the most efficient, intentional, and effective way possible. Right? And then I go to the actual 6 steps to 6 figures, and I kind of do a broad spectrum of my story and how it came about. And I've done it in multiple different industries now. So they've worked quite well in different industries. So I go through those. So let me go through each and then we'll kind of end it there. The first must is absolute clarity. So when I was broke and struggling, I realized that I needed to get clear on who I was, who I wasn't, what my strengths were, what I wanted, who I needed on my team. And it's easy to make decisions when you determine what your values are. So I realized that I hated being broke and I never wanted money problems ever again. And I knew I didn't want to settle for a normal job or work for somebody else. So the first thing people need to do is get really clear on who they are, what they want, and what they're willing to give up. So I walked through a 90-day challenge where they pick their goals for the month and they figure out their top 10 most compelling reasons to hit those goals, because really reasons come first, results come second. And there's a lot more on clarity in there, but that's huge. Then I also talk about something that my mentor, Gary Vaynerchuk, taught me about, the power of reverse engineering, where you figure out your ideal 6-month outcome. What does your business look like in 6 months? What does your team look like? How involved are you in the business? How much money are you making? How much do you have saved? What feelings are you experiencing? If we were meeting 6 months from now, what would have had to happen for you to be completely satisfied with your results and progress? So that's the first thing, is clarity. And I'm sure you know this, Wade, being a successful entrepreneur, you got to get clear and shift away from complexity and get to simplicity and get away from all the noise and just get a maniacal focus on what matters. And that's the first thing I talk about. The next is when I finally got clear, you got to increase your most important account, which is your confidence account. Everybody has a confidence account inside them. And based on that confidence account is what they've accomplished, or obviously what they haven't accomplished. And I'll tell you, insecurities are destroying people right now, while real confidence takes you to a level few people attain. So I go through the biggest tactics and comprehensive tips on how to build your confidence. And by the way, stop me if you have any questions or anything, because I'm not sure if you want me to just keep going. I can go all day.
Absolutely. Keep going. I don't want to interrupt you at all. I really want to give you an opportunity to really cut through the book and allow them to know what they can expect.
I love it. Cool. So the second thing is the confidence count. And I walked through the thing called the decision train, which I think has made a big impact on a lot of people's lives, where most people make decisions on how they feel and they act based on how they feel. But the top 5% that are thriving financially, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, they make decisions first and then they take action on those decisions regardless of how they feel. Because the reality is, at the end of every feeling is nothing, but at the end of every principle is a promise. So those who make decisions based on how they feel don't do very much. So I really walk through how to make decisions based off your standards and your vision versus your emotions or feelings. And that's a huge thing that holds entrepreneurs back, is they do what they feel and not what they should. So I talk about the biggest thing you can do to build your confidence is choose growth in the moment. And I walk through some questions that are very deep dive and powerful on kind of figuring out who you are and what your challenges are and how to be more consistent, how to make sure you have top-notch confidence as well. Once you get the confidence, the third aspect is shifting your circle of influence, right? And there comes a point in your life where you realize who matters, who never did, and who always will. And the quote that changed my life, when I was stressed and I was sitting in my one-bedroom apartment, 400 square feet with no money, my bank account was overdrawn, and I was very just down and out. And I heard a quote. It said, if you want to be a millionaire, who do you talk to? Billionaires, because you'll get there quicker. And I thought, I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone I'm associating with is average and they don't mind being average. A lot of people I was talking to were struggling managers. I wasn't talking to people that were changing the game, that were elevating their standards, that were thinking big. And I realized if you hang out with 5 confident people, you're the 6th. You hang out with 5 millionaires, you're the 6th. You hang out with 5 intelligent people, you're the 6th. But if you hang out with 5 idiots, you're the 6th, right? So I realized you have to shift your circle of influence, and that's a huge key. So I literally walked through an activity I learned at a $10,000 Tony Robbins business mastery event that made the whole event worthwhile. And I give away hundreds of thousands of dollars information in here. But I walk through, I'm not going to go through the questions now, but it's something that I think really helps. And I go through why you need to shift your circle of influence. I also go through, I've connected with some of the world's most elite performers and athletes and celebrities, entertainers. I actually go through, I give them an outline email on what they can send to millionaires and billionaires to reach out that get very good response. So people always ask me, how do you reach out to successful people? I literally give them the documents and the blueprints that I use, Wade, so they can literally copy and paste it and email people, which is pretty awesome. Next, after you shift your confidence, then you want to make sure that you have consistent energy and motivation. So the next, I go through really energy tactics, how to maximize your energy and motivation. So how you're getting bigger things done in less time. And those who don't make time for exercise and for energy will eventually have to make time for illness, right? So what I realized is, no matter how much money you have, how successful you are financially, if you don't have energy, you have nothing. So I've been fortunate enough to email back and forth Ariana Huffington and read her book, and she's got me actually access to write for Huffington Post, and she talks a lot about energy. And one thing she said that I think is a game changer is never, ever make a decision when you're tired, hungry, angry, or lonely. Because when you're tired, you're a coward and you make bad decisions. So I go through all these things that people don't even think about that can help their energy level and their motivation. Because when you have the confidence and you're consistent, but you have no energy, I mean, what do you feel like doing, Wade, when you have no energy?
Yeah, sleeping.
Exactly.
Watching college football.
And when you're tired, you make stupid decisions. Not you in general, but maybe you do. I don't know. But people need to realize that they have to make decisions on their peak state and literally predetermine when they're going to be thinking and working on their business, things like that. Next, peak performance secrets of the world's greatest. So I added a chapter before my last 2 tactics of the 6 figures. And I've studied peak performance for 10 years. And I put my best, I think, 10 tactics in there on really my 10 game-changing productivity strategies that you can use right away to really help your results. And I've had some people that have read it already and edited it and stuff. They said that's one of their favorite chapters. Then the next chapter is crafting your perfect result rituals. And what I've realized is the amount of stress people have in their life is in direct correlation to the lack of systems or rituals they have in place. So I literally go through how to create rituals to make sure you have top-notch habits. So whether it's mindset rituals, health rituals, productivity rituals, wealth rituals, I go through and give all the rituals I have, and I literally I get pretty personal, which is not like me. I deep dive into my journey and exactly what I do, the questions I ask, and I go through what my non-negotiables are. And if you can have non-negotiables that you do not budge on every week, and you know that those are connected to a bigger purpose and are proven to get results, you're on the first step to creating some pretty dynamic rituals. And then lastly is continual growth and learning. So I talk about how to continually grow and how to make sure you're becoming who you need to become to build a world-class life. So this is not just how to make six figures, it's how to sustain it year after year after year, and how to build a champion type world-class life that's inspiring for others as well. And then we can get into some other stuff, but really the last couple chapters are a challenge to the readers. And there's a couple I skipped that you'll have to obviously check out if you want to learn more. I don't have enough time, but the number one thing that I think holds most people back in the world is the next chapter, and we can kind of go through that. I'll read a quote from it. The wealthiest place on the planet is the cemetery because it's filled with brilliant ideas, a lot of potential, all wasted. So I really deep dive into what it takes to make sure you're thriving at a level you know you're capable of. So we'll kind of stop there for now.
Peter, you did a phenomenal job of breaking down the book.
Appreciate that.
This next question I almost feel like is kind of mean because you just gave a great deep dive. And now I'm asking you to take it even a step further, in that if the reader can only take away one concept, principle, or action out of everything you just talked about, your entire book, what would you want that to be?
Good question. I think there almost has to be two. So I'll mix two in one. I think they have to understand the power of focusing on mastery versus overload. Those who have more than three priorities really don't have any. People are so overloaded with information, and the second you become overwhelmed, you seek distraction subconsciously. So I think if they define who they were, what their strengths were, who they wanted on their team, and if they really fast forwarded 6 months and figured out what their ideal outcome was, and they just studied what actually was relevant and made sense to them, if they picked the one key behavior and just focused on mastering what they were learning versus overloading themselves, I think that's the key. And I will give you a little secret too. Another thing that I think, if someone young is listening, the number one reason why most people don't succeed is because they never have ever told themselves, Wade, that now matters, ever. They're like, someday I'll be successful, someday, just not now. And the reality is, most people spend the first half of their life saying they're too young, and the second half of their life saying they're too old. And I just call people out. There's no tomorrow for champions. And you're going to find urgency in every successful person. And if you don't have urgency, good luck in the future. So I think mastery versus overload, and making sure now matters. Like not tomorrow, like what you do tonight matters. What you do after this podcast. Don't just sit there and go, oh man, this book sounds cool, and then go, oh, I'll get it later and go watch TV. Take action on it, and actually take action every day, because it's how you're living every day that makes you either unstoppable or stressed out. So that's really what I'll go for, is just those two things.
That's awesome, Peter. I feel like out of this interview so far, we probably could have pulled 20 quotes, and that's actually what the next question's about. And again, you might have already answered this. I don't know if it was your favorite, but do you have a favorite quote from your book?
I like your questions. Yeah, I mean, I said a couple of them. I think if I had to pinpoint it to one, I'd say never let somebody who's given up on their dreams talk you out of yours.
Oh, yeah.
And another thing I say often is let your vision guide you, not your current circumstances. And really, I have a poster I'm looking at in my office. It says, think like the millionaires, but hustle like you're broke. And I think those quotes, I always try to add more quotes than you asked me for. Sorry. But it's those three I love, and then the ones I said earlier. But if I had to do anything, it's like, I think teachers and sadly parents and people that are older and experienced that maybe are not living their dreams, they're so quick to put people down or tell them not to chase their dreams because they haven't accomplished them. And that's the saddest thing on earth. So I challenge people when they're reading, only take advice from people you would trade places with, right? And don't let someone give up on that they gave up on their dreams to talk you out of yours. And that's really where I'd end it. That quote.
So Peter, there's no doubt that you're a reader. With the different quotes that you just pulled out, how passionate you are, how much of a studier of the people that you've talked about throughout the podcast. So, and just, we own a sales company, and we talk to our reps all the time about furthering their education with conferences and reading. And I'd hire you, but I know that I can't afford you. So,
and to be honest, man, I know I've tried. I can't be. It's impossible. I can't work for anybody. It's it's like the weirdest thing.
Unplayable.
But, I'd love to help you in any way I can, man. I love what you're doing.
There's a point to where I think there's just a no going back. And again, your greatest value is not sitting behind a desk. It's teaching others the same things you know. So that was more of a joke on my end. But if there was only one book you could recommend to our listeners based on the way it's impacted your life, based on the way it's created a paradigm shift for you, what would that book be?
Wow. I think when I was at the toughest times and I was going for a 6-figure income and breaking the all-time record in my company, like thinking about a record when you're broke is like weird. It's like you can't think that far ahead, but this book got me through it. And it was Maximum Achievement by Brian Tracy. That really, really helped me just shatter my limitations and really bulletproof my mindset. Another one is MJ Marco's Millionaire Fastlane. That really helped me as well, entrepreneur-wise. But Maximum Achievement probably made a pretty big impact in my life.
I was
Think and Grow Rich too.
I was going to ask you offline. Before we even came on, you said that you're not fluff, and I told you that's how I talk to myself in my head. MJ DeMarco's book is one of my favorite books purely because when I'm reading it, I felt like it was me talking to me because he does not pull punches. He was just direct and telling you what you needed to hear, not what you wanted to hear. And I loved it. So
here's what I'm going to do. He's a friend of mine, and he gave a dynamic interview to my Game Changers. I have an academy, and he spoke to all my platinum members, and the interview was just unreal, like just raw and uncut. So I would love to email me after, and I'll send it to you. You could listen to it. You'd like it.
Oh, yeah. I will absolutely love that. Thank you very much. So, Peter, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to not only get more information on you, but also your book, 6 Months to 6 Figures?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a Twitter guy. I love Twitter. My handle is Ambition23. Peter Voogd 23. Ambition 23 is my Instagram. I get confused all social media. So Peter Voogd 23 is my Twitter. And the book is at sixfiguresbook.com, Wade. And then if they're interested in learning more about the Academy, gamechangersmovement.com. You have to apply, obviously, but there's some free resources there as well. So 6 Figures Book, if they want to order the book, it's on Amazon, Kindle, Nook. I actually don't even know what Nook is. Do you? It's on Nook, but I don't know what that is. Nook and iTunes as well. So they can get it there. And then Real VIP, I don't want to give too many plugs, but realvipsuccess.com is 100% a resource place where they can go to get articles and things like that, where they can just better themselves. And there's a lot of different interviews I've done with some pretty big people on there as well. So, and then I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. So whoever they want to connect, I'm definitely love connecting with people that are driven and ambitious. And if they email me, I'll definitely email them back and help in any way I can and add as much value as possible to those that are hungry enough to take action. Since
70% of the people listening to this probably right now are mobile, are listening on their mobile, we're going to put all the links to what you discussed today in the show notes so they can go visit and go back when they have time, to hit up the PC or if they want to on their phone and check out all the different things that you've discussed today. Even the quotes that you've gone through, everything we're going to have in the show notes. So we've revamped them recently. But Peter, more than anything, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your book with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for what you're doing and the impact you're making. I appreciate you as well.
Thanks again for listening in today. If you'd like more information on Peter or his book, 6 Months to 6 Figures, just check out the show notes at the elpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.